There is something about love that is unfinished and interrupted, that doesn't let go. It finds a hold in our hearts and our memories and creates a yearning to find it again. It is this chronic impulse that compels Christopher, a recently widowed man in his 70s, to close down his restaurant in Iceland and head out in search of the woman he loved in his 20s. As Christopher heads to London, the scene of his incomplete affair, he recalls memories of Miko. It's London in the late 1960s, and Christopher is in university. Disillusioned with his studies, he applies to work as a dishwasher at a Japanese restaurant owned and run by Takahashi. This is where he first meets Takahashi's daughter, Miko, who also works there. Over time, an attraction develops between Miko and Christopher that plays out in stolen glances and short conversations. However, neither act upon their feelings as Miko is dating a Japanese man. Christopher's work ethic and interest in Japanese cuisine and culture and language endears him to Takahashi. One day, he notices Takahashi speak to Miko's boyfriend and discourage him from dating his daughter. Miko's budding relationship is no more. Another night at the restaurant, Miko playfully goads Christopher to sing a song. Christopher reluctantly obliges. It is an Icelandic song, and Miko is smitten. Miko and Christopher consummate their relationship but do not inform Takahashi. What follows are, for Christopher, halcyon days of love and learning to cook. As their love grows deeper, Miko opens up to Christopher. She tells Christopher that her family is from Hiroshima and that her mother was 6 months pregnant when the atom bomb leveled the city, and that she was born prematurely and her mother passed away not long after giving birth. She explains that she's a survivor of the nuclear attack and carries all the stigma attached with being one. The couple continue their relationship. One day at the restaurant, Takahashi gets a visit from the doctor. They have a private meeting. The next day, as the restaurant is getting ready for a week-long closure for the holidays, Takahashi acts secretive and cagey. He tells Hitomi, one of the staff, nervously that he's going away somewhere for the holidays. At the end of the workday, he tells Christopher to lock up. On his way out, he turns and casts a sad look at Christopher and then exits. As Christopher is about to close the restaurant, Miko visits him, gives him a gift, and they make love, and she leaves, teary-eyed. After the holidays, Christopher goes back to work but learns from Hitomi that the restaurant has been closed down. Takahashi and his daughter have vanished without a trace. And so 50 years later, 50 years, an entire lifetime later, Christopher crosses continents and oceans and stands in front of Miko's apartment building. He makes his way up to her home. He sees her through frosted glass. And then Miko says, "Is that really you?
I hope you had a good life."
A good life. 50 years of yearning and melancholy condensed into 7 words. I hope you had a good life. That sentence buckles under the weight of unspoken sadness. Why did Miko disappear? She reveals to Chris her story. Her father Takahashi was always worried that any children of Miko's would have birth defects, as she was in the womb when her mother received a large dose of radiation. It is for this reason that he broke up Miko's relationship with the young Japanese man all those years ago. Takahashi had convinced Miko to get sterilized in order to put his fears of having a disabled grandchild to rest. But when they went to the doctor for the procedure, the doctor discovered that Miko was pregnant. Furious, Takahashi rushed her back to Japan and forced her to give up her child for adoption. Miko remained in Japan, unmarried, and did not have any more children. But Christopher is surprised to learn that Miko's child, a son named Akira, was born healthy and was adopted by a good family, and that he, like Christopher, is a chef. He even has 2 children of his own. In fact, his restaurant is not far away and Miko often dines there. Akira has no inkling that she is his biological mother. Miko takes Christopher to dine at Akira's restaurant. Akira welcomes the couple and serves them, unaware that he's serving his birth parents. Christopher is moved at the sight of his son, the son he has had with his first love, Miko. The couple take a walk after dinner, and Christopher sings the song he sang at the restaurant in London, the very song that made Miko fall in love with him 5 decades earlier. Chico is an elderly shoe shiner in Havana in the early to mid-aughts. He lives a simple life alone in a Spartan apartment. One day, a famous singer asks after him. She's thrilled to know that he's still alive. Chico is no ordinary man. See, behind Chico's humble demeanor is a story of adventure, of perfidy and gangsters and fame and misfortune, and most importantly, of love and its loss. He is not just a shoe shiner. The young singer is a big fan of his, and they collaborate and make music together. He becomes famous, tours the world, and receives awards. But there is one thing he really seeks: a love from his past, distant yet not forgotten, Rita. Over half a century earlier in Havana in 1948, Chico sees and hears Rita sing for the first time. He is entranced. Chico is a talented pianist and Rita a gifted singer. With a shared passion for music, the two quickly fall in love. However, their love is not a steady one, but one marked by the tumult of jealousies, ambition, miscommunication, and heartache. Breakups and makeups. It is a love of highs and lows. But it is music that always brings them back together. Chico and Rita end up in New York and then Las Vegas. Rita's profile increases. She plays to large crowds and even stars in a movie. Chico finds some success playing at various clubs. They fight, break up, and reconcile. Chico moves to Paris when he gets an opportunity to play in a famous troupe. Unbeknownst to Chico, this opportunity was orchestrated by Rita's jealous manager to keep him away from Rita. But they stay in each other's minds, primarily through each other's musical works. Sometime later, Chico and Rita reunite in New York, and they decide to get married. The respective agents once again undermine their wedding plans as it would be bad for business. Chico is deported to Cuba on trumped-up drug charges, and Rita ruins her career by speaking out against the racism that she, an artist of color, faces.
She's finished. She won't work again.
Chico is not able to leave Cuba as the country is in the midst of the communist takeover. And thus 47 years elapse and Chico finds himself bestowed with fame and fortune. There is only one thing to do: find his lost love. He travels across the states to track her down. His search takes him to the same motel that Rita was staying at when she was a performer in Vegas. He knocks. Rita opens the door. In a touching final scene, she tells him that she had been waiting for him, waiting for his knock on her door. He asks her if he can come in. Reunions do not always result in the resumption of relationships, however. It is the early 1960s in London. Edward and Florence are two lovers living in a world on the precipice of the sexual revolution, accompanied by rock music coming into its own. A world heady with the mix of free love and transgressive tunes. It is love at first sight for Edward and Florence. Despite Edward coming from a working-class family, something Florence's upper-class family disapproves of. He has a bright future ahead of him as he is academically gifted. They start dating. They genuinely have love for each other. Florence plays the violin and leads a string quartet and quickly endears herself to Edward's family.
Marry that girl.
Edward is a fan of modern music but is very supportive of Florence's dream of becoming a musician. He promises her that the day that she plays to a crowd, he'll sit up in the front and applaud and say bravo.
Ready to shout at the end. What is it they shout?
Bravo.
Bravo! Bravo, the Ennismore Quartet!
They decide to get married. However, on their honeymoon, demons from their pasts come to haunt them. We discover that Edward is temperamental and quick to anger, and Florence was abused by her father as a child. Both of them have no experience and are not able to properly consummate their relationship. Florence finds sex to be repulsive given her past trauma, but she is unable to properly articulate this. This only angers and confuses Edward, as Florence's attitude appears inscrutable to him. Florence tells Edward that she does genuinely love him, and suggests that they remain a couple and that, should he choose to, he can take up mistresses.
I'd never be jealous as long as I knew that you loved me.
To Edward, this unorthodox proposal is obscene. Florence apologizes to him and asks him to head back to their suite together. We know how this story goes. He refuses, and their marriage is annulled. We next see Edward sporting a 70s hairdo 13 years after his breakup, working at his record store. A little girl walks in and asks for a record. As Edward talks to her, he realizes she must be Florence's daughter. Her name is Chloe, the name Florence told him she'd give her baby if she had a daughter.
If we have a girl, she'll be called Chloe.
We jump forward in time again, by 32 years this time. Edward is in his 60s, living alone. While not explicitly shown, we can infer that he never married nor has had any children. He hears on the radio that Florence's troupe will play one final time at the venue where, 45 years earlier, Edward had promised her he'd be to see her perform. As an elderly Florence plays, her eyes meet those of Edward's. She sees him among the crowd with tears in his eyes. Her eyes, too, betray a melancholy for something distant and lost. When the music ends, the audience applauds, and Florence sees Edward saying bravo, just as he, all those years ago, promised he would. The past continues to occupy more and more space in our lives. That is just the way time and aging works. In middle age, more of your time is behind you than ahead. By the time you're 80, the past is all there is. But you don't have to be old to be caught in the gravitational pull of the past. Takahashi lives under the shadow of the nuclear attack on Hiroshima. He cannot escape it. Miko, despite coming to a new country with new norms, ends up a dutiful daughter that obeys her father's orders. Generations of embedded racism brings Rita's career to an end. Florence's past abuse maintains a grip on her. As social norms are steadily upended, we see that Edward realizes the true depth of love Florence had for him. But it's too late.
She really loves him, and she doesn't want to let him down. But she wants to be with him, and she wants him to be happy.
They say that youth is wasted on the young. We see that despite the vitality and promise of youth, communication is not one of the benefits conferred by it. Miko lacks the courage to tell Christopher the problems she is facing and disappears without a trace. Chico and Rita fight frequently, become jealous of disloyalty, both perceived and actual, and are not able to tame or adequately put to words their emotions. Edward and Florence are woefully inept at opening up to each other and expect naively that love should conquer all.
And we can't talk about it. We can never just be happy.
Music and song vibrate in consonance for Miko and Christopher, just as for Chico and Rita. Christopher sings in a choir, and we see him as an old man singing the very song that made Miko fall in love with him. That memory must reach out to him from the past, an unbroken string across time that ties them together. Chico rediscovers his love for music and reunites with Rita. Rita and music are one and the same. He is drawn to her because of her singing, and they make music together. After their first fight, they are only reconciled because they have to work together to win a music competition. Years later, Chico's music plays on the radio and is carried across an ocean to Rita. Rita remains in Chico's life through her movies that play in France. Rita is Chico's music, and without Rita, without music, Chico had lain dormant for decades. However, harmony remains elusive for classical and rock music, for Edward and Florence. Music is used as an ironic counterpoint in On Chesil Beach. Florence, who is a fan of classical music, old music, traditional music, is open to new ideas when it comes to love. Edward enjoys rock music that is modern for his time but cannot let go of old ways of thinking. Getting older does provide a good vantage to take in the totality of one's life, as only when most of one's life is firmly in the past can one scour it for memories that truly endure and see what is truly important. While decades of interruptions lend these three stories a tragic air, as we are left imagining lives that could have been but never were, it is consoling to know that the lovers therein are awakened and animated by the pull of unfulfilled love. In the winter of their lives, they are resurrected by their haunting. So I say we should all be so lucky to remember being young and moved by music and song that traverses time and space, and to have loved something, anything, so deeply. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments as it helps expand the reach of this video. Thank you for watching. Cheers.